New technology is helping the Commonwealth's chief medical examiner solve some decades-old mysteries.
Recently, she and local investigators put a name and a face on some skeletal remains discovered back in 1996. 10 on your side's Art Kahn shows us how investigators solved a Portsmouth mystery.
Yeah, well, if you are one of those people who think dead men tell no tales, the state's chief medical examiner has a bone to pick with you.
Oh, they do. They talk to you. You just have to listen very carefully.
For 15 years, the soul of this deceased young man has been crying out to police to reunite him with his family. Using the skeletal remains that were discovered inside this abandoned Portsmouth business, FBI agents created this facial approximation of the man whose identity until a couple of weeks ago was a mystery.
It's pretty ironic that his skeleton was found about a mile from where he lived, and then his skeleton resided here, 5 miles from where he lived for all these years.
And this young man is Andre Macklin. He was 19 years old. In 1996, in June, his father reported him missing.
Macklin's death was drug-related, but he wasn't murdered. Relatives didn't have a clue what had happened to him until 10 on your side and other media outlets broadcast a story last year with an appeal to anyone who recognized one of the faces modeled here to come forward.
The family saw the bust, called us back. A different family member called us back and said, you know, I think this is my relative.
Modern DNA testing matched samples taken from both the skeletal remains and surviving family members of the missing teenager. The news was bittersweet for the young man's father.
He cried, but he was also relieved.
Police are focusing on the other two unidentified faces. Although Macklin's death was not a homicide, there's a good chance that both Jane and John Doe were killed.
30% of these unidentified cases are homicides. So if he's not a homicide, the other two likely are.
Now, another important element to solving these missing person cases is for both police and family members to take advantage of a website called Name Us. This is essentially a national database of information on missing persons and unidentified remains. We have a link for you on wavy.com. Art Kahn, 10 on your side.
Now, if you recognize one of the other faces modeled in Art's story, you're urged to call the medical examiner's office. The number is 757-683-8366.